Hello and welcome to this lecture on Proverbs and Song of Songs. My name is Kelly Dagley and I teach at Hope International University. The book of Proverbs is a collection of wisdom material, mostly sayings that may have been used by wisdom teachers in Israel. A proverb is a belief, a particular expression of truth. Proverbs are guidelines rather than fixed formulas, and tend to be deliberately enigmatic in order to encourage the hearer to reflect. Proverbs try to discern order from the apparent chaos of experience by extracting patterns through careful observation. As for the authorship of the book of Proverbs, Solomon is commonly associated with the book. Now, Solomon the king is known for his wisdom. He requests wisdom from God in 2 Kings 2. He becomes known as a very wise king and astounds many people with his wisdom. There are internal references to Solomon as the author in 1:1, 10:1, and 25:1. However, there are others referenced as authors as well. In 31, Agur is mentioned as an author of Proverbs, and then Lemuel is mentioned in 31:1 and 4. There's also a chronological allusion to the men of Hezekiah who are making a collection in 25:1. And in 2 Kings 18 through 20, Hezekiah is known as a reforming king. And Hezekiah may have put together various collections to aim him in his reformation of Israel in the 8th century. So Proverbs essentially is a representation of Israel's traditional, more conservative perspective. There are some ancient Near Eastern parallels to the book of Proverbs. There's the instruction of Amenem-Opet, which is Egyptian Proverbs, and then there are Proverbs from Mesopotamia. There are several collections from Mesopotamia. And wisdom literature as a whole was a sign of a developing society. If you were a king and you were established as a nation, you had schools of wisdom. And so this wisdom within Israel was probably not uniquely Hebraic. It was probably an import from other nations, then brought into Israel and given its own Hebraic spin. Now, the book of Proverbs is a collection of collections. There are 7 headings within the text that label the major sections of the book. Each section probably indicates a different collection of wisdom sayings that has been brought into the larger collection. Chapters 1 through 9 are the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. 10:1 through 22:16 are Proverbs of Solomon again. And then 22:17 through 24 are sayings of the wise. And then 23 through 24 are more saying of the wise. These are just generic wisdom sayings. And then 25:1 through 29:27 are more Proverbs of Solomon transcribed by the men of Hezekiah. And then chapter 30, the sayings of Agur, and then 31, the sayings of Lemuel. There are many different literary forms found in the book of Proverbs, but today we'll be looking at the instruction, the wisdom sentence, and the numerical proverb. The instruction is a command, positive or negative, followed by a motive clause, and occasionally also by a final or purpose clause that gives the consequence of following the advice presented. Proverbs 3:1 through 2, we begin with the command, "My child, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments." And then the motive, "For length of days and years of life and abundant welfare they will give you." Proverbs 3:9 through 10, we begin with a command, "Honor the Lord with your substance and with the first fruits of all your produce," and then the consequence of following the advice, "Then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine." The wisdom sentence nearly always is made up of 2 halves that exhibit parallelism, antithetic, synonymous, and progressive. Proverbs 12:1 through 2 is an example of these antithetic parallel wisdom sentences. "Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but those who hate to be rebuked are stupid." So this is antithetic, those who love the discipline and those who hate the discipline. Verse 2, "To The good obtain favor from the Lord, but those who devise evil he condemns. So the good receive the favor, but the evil do not. A synonymous example is Proverbs 21:17. Whoever loves pleasure will suffer want. Whoever loves wine and oil will not be rich. So, loving pleasure is the same as loving wine and oil, and both of those types of people are the same type of people, and they will always be in want. And then there is the progressive parallelism to the wisdom sentence, and this is a development of idea. Remember, that's a development over 2 lines of poetry, and an example is Proverbs 21, verses 22 and 23. One wise person went up against a city of warriors and brought down the stronghold in which they trusted. So the wise person overcame a stronghold of warriors. Verse 23, to watch over mouth and tongue is to keep out of trouble. So watching over mouth and tongue will keep you on the straight and narrow. And then there is the numerical proverb, and this usually takes the form of 3 things and then 4. It just is a pattern that was used over and over within the Proverbs. And examples we have in here are Proverbs 30, beginning in Proverbs 30, verse 16. There are 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that hurry to run to evil, a lying witness who testifies falsely, and one who sows discord in a family. So, 6 things that the Lord hates and 7 that are an abomination. These are things that are particularly bad that need to be emphasized. And having these 3 things 4 or 6 things 7 are a clever way of saying these wise things. There's some significant themes within the book of Proverbs, and we'll begin here with retribution, in which the world is self-correcting, where bad things happen to bad people, and if a bad person isn't being punished, don't worry, they'll get theirs in the end. The steadfast and the righteous will live well. 11:27 says, whoever diligently seeks good seeks favor, but evil comes to the one who searches for it. 12:2, the good obtain favor from the Lord, but those who devise evil he condemns. 12:13, the evil are ensnared by the transgression of their lips, but the righteous escape from trouble. The next theme is wisdom includes and leads to justice and piety. There are certain ways of knowing and becoming wise which lead to justice and piety, or godliness. The first is sapiential, or wisdom is a way of knowing reality. And this presupposes that there is a hidden order of things. The wise observe and discern this order and sequencing of things. There are clear directions in living based on patterns seen in the world. So the wise pay attention to these patterns. An example of this is in 11:24. Some give freely, yet grow all the richer. Others withhold what is due and only suffer want. So this is encouraging generosity. And then 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and the haughty spirit before the fall. This is telling someone to be always humble. The sated appetite spurns honey, but to a ravenous appetite even the bitter is sweet. So these are observations on life, these patterns that people have seen, that the wise have seen, about generosity, about being humble, about having a ravenous appetite, metaphorically and literally. Then there is ethical. Wisdom is a way of conducting oneself. If one acquired wisdom, it affects one's behavior. There is a consistency between one's inner life and one's behavior. 10:30 says, the righteous will never be removed, but the wicked will not remain in the land. 29:7 says, the righteous know the rights of the poor. The wicked have no such understanding. And then 16:2 emphasizes God as the final judge. All one's ways may be pure in one's own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. So the test of character is not the claim one makes about one's own integrity, but the behavior that one demonstrates shows one's integrity. And then there is religious. Wisdom is a way of relating to the divinely designed order and to God. So there is this fear of God, which it can be defined as both reverence and dread. And this can be seen as trying to live in a way that doesn't offend or make God mad. 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. 1:29. There are those who hate knowledge and do not fear God, and they will get what they deserve, essentially is what it's saying. Because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would have none of my counsel and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way and will be sated with their own devices. And then there is this trusting God equaling fearing God. And the next sound is very familiar. We often quote this. 3:5-7. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, and turn away from evil. It will be a healing for your flesh and a refreshment for your body. So this fear, this trusting God, is understanding who God is and behaving accordingly. He is not our buddy, but we need to revere and we need to fear him. The next theme is humans as knowers and doers. And within the book of Proverbs, it's seen that humans are free to choose wisdom within the parameters set for them. So Proverbs highlights the role of the senses in acquiring and manifesting wisdom and folly. The mouth and the mouth or tongue is very key in this. The mouth is the most important organ because with it you bless, you curse, and these words can affect the whole course of history. An example of this is 10:6, and then again a little bit further in verse 11. Blessings are on the head of the righteous, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Verse 11, the mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. And then 18:4, and then following in 6 and 7. The words of the mouth are deep waters. The fountain of wisdom is a gushing stream. A fool's lips bring strife, and a fool's mouth invites a flogging. The mouth of fools are their ruin, and their lips are a snare to themselves. So the lips or the mouth, this speaking, are an example of the choices that humans have. They're free to choose to speak these words, whether they be foolish or they be wise. And then there is a contrasting of ways of life we see within the Proverbs. There is the righteous and the wicked, and we've already seen some examples of righteous and wicked. But there is the way of the righteous, which tends to be the preferred way, with a specific morality or ethic. We see in 9:9, give instruction to the wise, and they will become wiser still. Teach the righteous, and they will gain in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The way of the wicked is deep darkness. Because they are wicked, they don't know what they stumble over. And we see this exemplified in 5:22-23. The iniquities of the wicked ensnare them, and they are caught in the toils of their sin. They die for lack of discipline, and because of their great folly they are lost. Another contrast of ways of life is the wise and the foolish. To be wise is to recognize that one doesn't know everything. To presume to know everything is folly, and the fool's life leads to destruction. The fool shows his folly by lying, speaking slander, boasting, and overestimating his own value. 26:12 says, do you see persons wise in their own eyes? There is more hope for fools than for them. 28:26 says, "Those who trust in their own wits are fools, but those who walk in wisdom come through safely." And then 18:2 says, "The wise lay up knowledge, but the babbling of a fool brings ruin near." So, whether it be the righteous or the wicked, or the wise and the foolish, through the Proverbs, it's clear that one is to try to live their life as righteous and as wise. And now we move from Proverbs to Song of Songs. Many people do not know what to do with Song of Songs. People either tend to avoid it or make it safe. Some questions many people have about the book are, how is Song of Songs interested in salvation? Is it interested in salvation at all? Is it maybe about the covenanted love relationship between God and Israel? Well, maybe, but this view really creates a whole new different set of questions. And where does the reader even find God in Song of Songs? Is God even mentioned? And then lastly, why is this book even in the Bible? All these questions have been asked over the centuries about this beautiful yet confusing book. The Hebrew title to the book is Shir HaShirim. It's a superlative, literally saying Song of the Songs, but meaning the best of songs. It's also known as Song of Solomon and Canticles, which is a shortened and anglicized version of the Latin Vulgate title, Canticum Canticorum. We really don't know who wrote Song of Songs. There are many options within the translation. It could mean that it was written by Solomon. It could mean that it was written to him, for him, as him, in the way of Solomon, somebody playing the role of Solomon. Additionally, the book describes Solomon in the third person, and he's not speaking and acting as himself within it. So it's a good bet that he did not write the book. The evidence for the date of the writing is not very conclusive either. It could be written early and written in Solomon's day, which is evidenced by some word and name usage, or it could be a later composition, yet again evidenced by some word and name usage. Plain and simple, and much to the chagrin of many of the church fathers, Song of Songs is love poetry. Another adjective that could be used is erotic, but to save me from being embarrassed this entire lecture, we will call it love poetry. It is probably influenced by poetry from other cultures in the ancient Near East. Similar themes found in this poetry are the appearance of the loved one, yearning to be with the beloved, the overcoming of obstacles to be together, and these are all very universal experiences. There are Sumerian, Akkadian, and Ugaritic love poetry very similar to Song of Songs, but the closest parallels come from Egyptian love poetry. Some similarities between Egyptian love poetry and Song of Songs are, in both, the woman is referred to as sister of her lover. In the Egyptian songs, but not in the Song of Songs, the male lover is referred to as brother as well. In the Egyptian songs, the lovers are presented or present themselves in fictional roles as royalty, servant, and shepherd. In Song of Songs, they take on the roles of royalty, shepherd, and gardener. So there are similar extravagant complements of each other which appear in the Egyptian and Hebrew songs. A difference between Egyptian love poetry and Song of Songs is that the Egyptian songs are soliloquies in which the speaker speaks only to themselves, where Song of Songs appears to be a dialogue. This is a good general outline and overview of the plot, in quotation marks, of Song of Songs. This is very hypothetical and one of many options according to different commentators. So we have the courtship from 1:1 to 3:11. There are 10 scenes of growing intimacy leading up to a wedding. And then 4:1 through 5:1 is the imagery of this wedding. And then growth in marital love from 5:2 to 8:14. And these are 4 scenes of growing intimacy within the marriage relationship. Again, this is very hypothetical, but I find it a very interesting outline in being able to make sense of the flow and the development within the book. Some unique features to Song of Songs. Song of Songs has an unusual interest in the woman's point of view. More than half the verses are spoken by the woman. A majority of the discourses are in her voice, and if her lover speaks, it is often when she quotes what he has said. She also has the very first and the very last words of the book. This is very unique within the Hebrew canon. As Song of Songs is a dialogue between a male and female voice, it is important that we remain attentive and ask first ourselves at the beginning of each verse, who is speaking here? And is he or she speaking directly to his or her partner or to a group of peers? Many of our translations today will give headings saying the beloved is speaking or the lover is speaking. They might have the man or the woman, but some translations do not. And so we must pay attention to the very words themselves and try and figure out the directions of the words. As we saw before, there were no dramatic instructions within the text. Because Song of Songs was written as highly crafted poetry, the interpretation of its literature requires imagination and poetic sensitivity. To read the song is not first to decipher words, but to listen carefully to musical textures such as alliteration, homophony, rhyme, repetition, play on words, and rhythms. The reader must enter imaginatively into the literary world of the author. This is hard to do for many of us because you might not read Hebrew, but if you are reading an English translation, try to appreciate the imagery and the emotional impact of the words. Don't just read the words as just scripture, but read them for the impact that they were intended to create. Song of Songs is marked by its focus on God's ideal manifestation of erotic love as an essential part of a pure, maturing relationship within marriage. When interpreted literally, Song of Songs teaches emphatically that pure erotic love in marriage is God's good and sacred gift to be enjoyed, nurtured, and protected. It is both a celebration and warning concerning the most intense and fragile of all human emotions, romantic love, and its physical expression, sexuality. Those are the words of Daniel Estes. Overall, the book of Song of Songs is a celebration of love between a man and a woman first and foremost, affirming this part of our humanity. This message was important enough for the believing community to save and to hold on to for future generations. That is what this book is doing in our Bibles.